this room is not usually on the tour we give citizens because it's a secured room, right? Anything that we do as police officers generates a report. It might be one page that just says, hey, this lady called and she said her cat's barking at the fence or whatever. And they'll say, I went over there was no cat, officer left the scene. And that's one piece of paper, right? Or it might be something super serious, right? Like somebody robbed the bank, which has happened. And that would be a lot of paper because it's a big crime.
Like this much?
Oh yeah, easily. So we would take all that, we do lineups, anything that goes with that report, and we have to generate it as a hard copy. Even though we're in an electronic age, everything's like storage and videos and that kind of stuff, live streams, those kind of things. Even though it's electronic age, the DA still wants a hard copy they can hold in their hands when they go to court, especially. So we print it out. Those records have to be kept, and they're kept on these stacks. These are movable stacks. You've probably seen them on TV. You roll the wheels and these things move around. Because they're sensitive information, they're locked so they don't move around right now. But you can see through the middle that these things are piled in there, just from the bottom to the top, packed in there.
I want to work here now.
This is a lot of paperwork. We have 2 ladies that share this office and do that job. So about these stacks, they're all the way floor to ceiling, all the way back. They're packed in there. You see now we have some boxes on the floor because we're kind of running out of room. There's some under the desks. You see some stuff up here, right? Because they ran out of room, so they're now putting stuff up here as well. So the question is, why don't you just get rid of them? Go through your stuff and throw it out, like clean your room, right? We can't because records have to be kept for a certain amount of time depending on what that record is of. If it's a homicide, we're going to keep that forever and ever and ever. If it's a barking dog call, then we may keep it for 90 days. And so as soon as they can get rid of something, they do. But because we're a city of 40,000 people, right, that's a lot of calls that come in all the time, which generates a lot of reports, which makes a lot of paper, which leads to this. So they've had to put boxes up on top just to have room. The fire marshal's not a big fan of that. They want us to have things that are 18 inches away from the ceiling, so fire and all that stuff, right? So we don't let the fire marshal in here. But now it'll be on video and he'll know. So
now he's gonna know.
Yeah. Sorry, Dr. Knapp, that's just what happens. We had other media, so we had microfiche. You've probably seen those on TV too, where they go in and go to the library and they turn the little thing and the newspaper clips go by.
Oh yeah.
Right? So we still have a machine for that, and we're actually trying to convert all of our microfiche over to different media because it takes up a lot of room and it's harder and harder to find parts for those machines. Okay? So we do what we can to try to change media, but we still have to store it. Behind you, that loud computer, right? That's a server, and it has data on it. So in police work, right now we use a system called Spillman. And Spillman dispatches us to our calls and tells us where to go and what the emergency is and what the guy's doing and what his history is at that address, which is a great system. We've had other systems in the past, and the other systems just become antiquated. So I bet none of you have an iPhone 3?
No.
No, yeah. If you had one, it probably wouldn't work, right?
Yeah.
Because something better comes along that's better and faster, and they stop supporting the old thing.
Yeah.
That's kind of the same thing. However, because that has sensitive data on it, that's a system we used to use, we have to keep it, and we have to keep it running. So we can retain that data until we're allowed to finally get rid of those cases as they come up for the retention period expires. So we're left with stuff like this where we have to have a server plugged in somewhere just to hold old stuff. And you'll find out why it's here in just a second. You have any questions about this room, the records room? No? All right. There's some room in here.
Wow.
Right? Okay, this is supposed to be comforting green. I don't know if you feel comforted, but that's what it is. So this room is big and looks different for a reason. This used to be our dispatch center. So our dispatchers, when you call 911, the people answering the phone, that's what dispatcher does. Yes. So our dispatchers, their consoles will be here, and this is where their desks and stuff work. And you call 911, they get your call, they dispatch police or fire, whatever needed to happen. And so there were several consoles that were set up here. In about 2010, 11, somewhere around there, we combined cities. So Richland Hills, Haltom City, North Richland Hills, and Watauga all have shared services now. So that means our dispatch and our jail is in one place, which is in North Richland Hills. So if you get arrested in Haltom City, that's the jail you're going to go to instead of ours anymore. If you call 911, your call is actually going to North Richland Hills, but we listen to them on the radio. So they'll say, hey, Haltom unit, can you go to Savelle Street? Or can you go to Haltom Road? Or can you go to Denton Highway? They still dispatch us. A lot of our dispatchers used to work here, so they're very familiar with Haltom, and they know that it's Jerry and not some weird pronunciation or something like that. So we still have some Haltom dispatchers. If you called and said, I don't know what street I'm on, but I know the Valero's right here. They're gonna be like, oh, you're probably in Western Center and Silver Sage. Or, so they have that familiarity still, which is good. We have this weird piece of carpet right here, still sitting here. That's not feng shui. So when our dispatch consoles were here, they had all these wires and cables and data cables and power that came out of the back of the computers, because they had multiple monitors, all kinds of stuff that ran it. And they would go into a trench, and they ran here and went into a server room. When we took all the stuff out, we still have this metal trench buried in the floor we can't do anything with. So we throw a carpet over it
Hide it.
and hide it.
Oh, wow. So
you can see the metal trench that's still under there. We gotta watch out when we step over here because we can step through a hole in the floor. Woo! Like so. Because it's this was actually wasn't designed for the purpose we're using it now. You'll hear a lot about that as we go through our tour, is that we're using this room for something it wasn't never designed for. We just changed it and we're doing it the best we can. That's why it's still there. All of these files have all of our personnel records in it. So all the police officers that are here and all the police officers that have been here are in these files. We gotta keep them for such a long time. If an officer leaves Haltom City and goes to work for Arlington, we're gonna keep their file as well. That way Arlington can call and say, hey, tell us about Officer Bob. Take his file out and say, oh, he's been a good officer. Terrible driver, or whatever. So we have his files, we gotta keep them. Again, it's just one more thing, we're retaining paperwork, we can't get rid of it. We gotta put it somewhere and it starts taking up space. Just goes and goes and goes. In 1950, when we had officers across the street at City Hall, he had 3 jail cells, all right? And he just had a handful of cops. Well, in the 90s, they had almost 50 officers in the 90s, and they said, we need a bigger PD because we can't fit them over anymore. So they built this one. Now we have 78 officers now. We need more.
Wow.
We're hiring more. And we have records, and we have some other positions, some civilian positions as well. We have property technicians. We have dogs, right? We have all these extra personnel, all these extra cops that we have that we put in a building that wasn't designed for that. We just outgrew it, all right? Yes. So you'll see that we're just trying to do the best we can with the area that we have. So one of the rooms you would never see is this room right over here. So watch your step on the carpet, but come over here. Oh my goodness gracious.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
Lots of wires.
So this is our server room. All right, when this building was built, this was a nothing room. This was just storage. You could put stuff in here, any of your code or whatever, I don't know. They had our telephone lines and stuff in here. But we do police work differently now in 2021 than we did in 1996. Right? We have body cams now, we have dash cams now, we have computers in our car, we didn't have that. Our radios are great. All that uses data and all of it uses computers. Right? So this is the computer's guts, is what it is. If you get on Facebook, right? You shouldn't be on Facebook anyways. But if you were to get on Facebook or TikTok or Instagram, anything like that, all those computer programs you use have guts somewhere that makes them work. This is what makes it work, the police stuff work. This just makes our portion work, because we share it with Richland Hills, Watauga, North Richland Hills, right? This is a direct line to North Richland Hills PD that helps us communicate. The problem is, it is cold, right? All right, we keep it cold for a reason, because these computers generate a ton of heat, right? Before we didn't have this room cold, and we kept having computer problems. So now we keep it super, super cold to keep the computers cooled down. The computer you saw in that room over there needs to be in here. So we keep their office cold, but we don't have space for it in here. We can't set it on top of something and burn it up, right? And we don't have any place for it. Oh, burning this up already. So we got to keep it somewhere where it can stay plugged in and it can stay cold, so we keep it in their office and we just make them wear jackets.
There you go.
Right? So again, we're kind of repurposing a room that should have been for something else. Computer guts. All right, we're going to go this way. So this says interview room 1, but it is not an interview room anymore. So like a lot of things, when we saw an opportunity to use it for something else, we did. We have 3 ladies that are called Crime Victims Liaisons that works for 4 cities. They serve all 4 cities. What they do is, if we have a citizen in Haltom City that finds themselves a victim of crime, especially like a violent crime, they're going to come in and see what kind of services they can offer those people to help them out. One of the big examples would be domestic violence. So if we have a domestic violence situation in Haltom City and we arrest a spouse, somebody goes to jail, a lot of times the spouse that's left behind doesn't want to help press charges or doesn't want to help with the case. They want to, I'm not telling you nothing, I'm not saying nothing. Because if they do, and the spouse that went to jail stays gone, how do they pay for rent now? Because maybe that's a single mom or a single dad. How do they pay for utilities? How do they get the kids back and forth to school? It's a huge problem So it's easier to just, never mind, I'm just not gonna do anything about it, and just keep being a victim of violence. A lot of people will do that for years and years and years. These ladies can help them out of that. Like, hey, let's find you a place to stay. Let's get you help with rent. Do you need a car? Let's see if we can find you one. Do you need a car seat? Let's get that done. Do you need daycare work? Let's get that done. So they can offer these services to help them get out of that situation. So a lot of times it's called the cycle of violence because they just get stuck in it because they feel like they have nowhere to go. And these ladies can show them, actually, we can get you out of there. So this is the office that they share, right? As you can imagine, we probably, I would say 90% of the time we're dealing with families when they're in here talking to them. Sometimes those subjects are sensitive, right? We'd like to maybe not have kids present when we're talking to the adults about what happened, but we really have a choice because this is what we got, right? So you see we just got a few chairs in here. There's a car seat here because the program that we do also gives car seats to families that can't afford them. We have a lot of kids running around with no car seats.
I think he got one from you guys.
Did you?
Yeah, I think he got 2 of them from
Oh,
you.
fantastic.
Actually.
Well, there you go. So we provide those car seats to keep you safe in the car, right? And they worked because here you are.
Because here he is.
Right? But we also have to use their office to store stuff. You know, they have car batteries in here, and they have all, because we have no place to put this stuff. We have a camera system up, that's what this is. It goes to a camera system, we come around. If we have a problem area in the city, we have a portable camera system. We can go and we can hide cameras there, and we can watch for crime happening, like the catalytic converter thefts.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we can hide cameras in the city and try to watch for that and see if we can catch these guys. But we didn't have a place to store the stuff, so we had to use our office. We put a curtain over it, right? So you're gonna see that happens a lot. We're talking about the lack of space we have. We can change things around. We try to do the best we can to use the space, but at some point you just kind of run out, right? So this room used to be professional standards. The room we were just in over there, that's where they used to live over here, and all those filing cabinets and stuff were inside of here. When dispatch left, we moved them over there because there's a lot of training records and stuff they needed to have. The desks and stuff that were all in there were all in this little area. And we had detectives in here at one time, but we've moved them. So what this is used for now, it looks like a law room, but we have Miss Wyckoff. She's in charge of our Spillman system. When we type records in and we say, hey, there was a catalytic converter stolen at this apartment complex over there, there was a robbery at this gas station over there was a car stolen over there, those all become records, and the citizens of Haltom City want to know how safe their city is. And so they'll say, hey, how's our city doing? And the chief will say, hey, give me a list of all the stuff that's happened. And they'll say, well, look at that. Car thefts, way down. Good news. Officers doing a great job. Catalytic converter thefts, way up. We need to do something about that. Murders, there's none. Ooh, good job. So they can track that, and you can see how the city's doing as crime-wise by the records that are compiled. So it's super important we keep those accurate, right? And it's actually against the law for us to lie about that. So we can't be like, let's not call that a car theft. Let's call that borrowed, right? We can't do that because that would be lying. And it goes to the FBI and we get in a lot of trouble. And then the citizens, that would cheat y'all, right? We don't want to do that. We got to tell you the real deal. So that's what she does, and that takes up her full-time job. We get about 50,000 calls for service a year, right?
Wow.
They all generate records, and she has to deal with them.
No.
She's a one-woman army. This is Miss Flores' office. Miss Flores is part of our crime-free community. So she works with all 23 apartment complexes in Haltom City.
She works with the what?
The apartment complexes,
Oh, okay.
23 of them we have in Haltom City. What she does is she works with the management department complexes and to help keep the complexes as crime-free as possible. So what they do is, if you ever lived in an apartment complex before, you probably had that one neighbor that was loud or had people coming or going or smelled like weed or whatever, and you would complain to the management and they'd be like, oh, we'll talk to them. There was nothing they could do. If that tenant was way out of line, they could maybe file eviction papers on him and get that process going and the constable, but that could take months and months and months to do. Now when you go to one of the complexes that participates in our community, which is I think all of them now, when they're doing that, now they're saying if I'm in your complex and I'm over here committing crimes, they're gonna file on you, I'm gonna be out in 3 days.
Oh, wow.
So you're gonna live here, you're gonna behave. And if you don't, you're gone. So it gives apartment complexes some way to keep the bad tenants out and the good tenants in. It's really, really easy to get tenants in when you have a crime-free apartment complex. Because nobody says, hey, where's the most dangerous apartment complex? Can I live there? They don't. They live someplace safe. So it's a really, really great program, but she has to constantly maintain it because the apartment complexes, they change management all the time. As soon as they have a good, successful one, they sell it because that's how you make money. And somebody else comes in and they want to make their money. Yes?
If you get evicted in Haltom, are you still allowed to live there, or you gotta go to a different city?
So that's a good question. if it's an apartment complex and you're acting like a fool, right, and you had a lot of crime and police came all the time and you got evicted, right, in Haltom City, nobody else is gonna take you, at an apartment complex at least, right? You gotta go to Fort Worth and go take your nonsense to Fort Worth. We don't want it here. So that way they can't just move next door and start up all over again.
I didn't know that.
See?
Christian, Chris.
So that program costs the apartment complexes nothing. It's free.
Wow.
Yeah.
Good, yeah.
It's a good price. Yeah. So our chief, it's a funny story, he'll tell you himself. When we first talked about that program, he was like, that sounds like a waste of time. That's a lot of effort, a lot of manpower, a lot of things to do. Sounds like a waste of time, let's not do it. They did it anyways. Let's see how it goes. And then he'll tell you today, he said, I was against that program, but it works. And he is a big, big, big supporter now. He's like, I've seen it work. I eat my words. I'll take it all back. That is a great program. He used to be the night shift sergeant, so he saw all the calls that come in. We spent all of our time in apartment complexes, always. And now we don't because of that program. So it's a good program to have. This is my desk. I'm the community services liaison. So I do all the community events, the Explorers, the Citizens Police Academy, the police and fire camps. I do all of those. Of course, the tours. If one of the council members has something they want me to do, I'll handle those too. That's just one of the things. Lynn Thompson, especially. She'll always call me, hey, could you quickly coach? Sure, absolutely. I'm on it. So this is my desk. That's one of the hats that I wear. The other hat that I wear is mental health peace officer. So that's, you hear that in the news a lot. Like, why don't they do more about mental health? For the past about 10 years, we've had this program. So if somebody in our city is taken to JPS 10th floor, which is their psychiatric unit. Oh yeah, is that where you're at? Are you on the 10th floor?
No.
Okay, but you're aware of it.
Yes.
Okay.
I did the ER for 2 years.
Oh, very good.
Very, very aware of 10th floor.
So if we take someone to the 10th floor against their will, which is most of them, they don't normally like, some people do say, yeah, take me up there, but some are like, I'm not going. Or Millwood or Trinity Springs or any of the places, mental health facilities, if we take them there, when they're released, myself and my partner, Casey Bone from Tarrant County MHMR, we will go back and visit them at their home.
Oh, nice.
So we'll knock on their door and say, hey, listen, you went to JPS 2 weeks ago because you threatened to kill yourself, or because you're hearing voices, or because the trees are talking to you, or whatever. How are you doing now? How was JPS? What did they do for you up there? Did you get put back on your meds? Did you get new meds? Did you get meds at all? When's your follow-up appointment? Do you have it? Because with COVID, we had a problem for a while for access to meds. With COVID, nobody leaving their house and stuff. Can we help that? Is there some kind of free service? So we do all that for them to make sure they maintain their mental health, like the program that they need to have. Yes?
Once they don't open their doors.
Well, if they don't open their doors, I'll knock really loud. So the good
Knock
point about the
louder.
program is because it's always me and it's always Casey that comes and knocks on the door, they recognize us, right? So they might not open the door for Officer Bunch or Officer Mello or Officer Odell, but they'll see me and they're like, well, I know that guy. I'll open the door for him because they know we're going to have a conversation about mental health, which they need to have, right? So that's one of the jobs that we do. That desk is also shared by Corporal Dale. Corporal Dale is over the School Resource Officers Program. Corporal Dale is in charge of the SRO program. That's something else that I do. Yeah, so if those SROs get busy, I'll go and I'll film. I'm a certified SRO as well, so I'll go film with them as well. So I'll be in the schools a bunch. You'll see me. And then that's Sergeant Nichols' desk over there. He's in charge of the SRO supervisors. He's also in charge of ACO, which is animal control. And every so often I'll see Officer Morris poke her head over here in a minute. There it is. Officer Morris is one of our animal services officers. Right. So if we have anything involving cats and dogs and owls or snakes, right, she will come respond. That actually falls under the PD umbrella. So we have Nichols, Casey Bone, Roger Dale, Jalissa Flores, Sheriff Wyckoff, myself. I'll share this office. In addition, we also have the FTOs, which are the field training officers, and there's a bunch of them. There's 8 of them.
Oh, wow.
So on days throughout the week, maybe Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, we'll have 11 people in this room.
Wow.
And we're having 11 different conversations. Because he's talking about school kids, he's talking about Tahoes, she's talking about stats, she's talking about apartment complexes, I'm talking about mental health, right? So as you can imagine, it gets very, very chaotic. Also, if we have a big family that comes in, like the crime victim liaison, then we'll bring them in here. Because we want the most comforting room possible. So a lot goes on in this tiny room. The lockers behind you is where we store our stop sticks. They don't belong in here. You know what stop sticks are?
Oh yeah, the spikes, right?
Yes. If the car's taken off, you throw the spikes into the tires and it flattens them. Gotta have a place for them.
Yeah,
So we store them in here. We also store the Explorers gear in here. If we do a presentation outside the PD, my projector is stored in there as well. We had to have a place for it, so we do it in here. of all of our community programs. A lot of times I give out toys.
Speaking of,
Ta-da! Good job. Good job, Morris.
gotcha.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Oh, we like Pikachu.
And so I have toys piled under the desks. You see I put them under Sergeant Nichols' desk. They're piled up there
They're
too.
all
We just had to have a place to put them. So this is where we ended up grabbing them. So we have a place to go. Because when we moved into this building in 1996, we had far fewer people. The one urinal there for men and the two down there were plenty. Now, with 78 people, potties are in short supply. We're gonna talk about that run too. Who's ready to go to jail?
No.
All right. All right, so this is jail. We used to have jail when they arrested. We bring them in here. This is where they would go. All right. We had bunk beds in here, so sometimes you had 4 people per cell. We had one that held 6. We had a day room where they could hang out and watch TV and just behave. All right. And we had a detox cell where if they were drunk, we put them in there and they could kind of sober up or calm down. But we put females on this side usually. This was our DWI filming room. We would be outside. You've probably seen TV where they make you do the walk and turn and the leg stand and all that stuff, right? We do it in the field, which is on the side of a highway. After we arrested them, we said, yeah, you're probably drunk. We bring them in here, we do it again inside here in this room. This room was a controlled surface. It's nice and flat and level. It had the tape on the ground, everybody could see it, and it's recorded. So we bring them in here again and do it again. That way they're like, well, the road was lumpy, or I had something in my shoe. Now it's a controlled environment. We can be like, now there's an excuse. And they're like, I was just real drunk. So these cells, Ms. Camaros has it nice and organized, where she has different kinds of evidence in each one of these cells. So if we're out on the street and we arrest a criminal, and he's got drugs in his pocket or something, we're going to bring him here. We have to hold on to the drugs. So cell number 3 is at 20?
311.
311. 311 is the big one. It's got the guns, the drugs, and the money.
Oh my goodness.
But you see it's behind a cell door. These are all cinder block walls reinforced with steel and concrete. It's a concrete ceiling, right? And concrete floor, and all steel. So it is safe in there, right? It's gonna be really, really hard to get to that without a key, pretty much. It's very, very important that we keep that stuff stored away appropriately until the trial. So if somebody gets arrested and they've got bad stuff on them, we take the stuff away, we put it in storage until the trial date because they're innocent until proven guilty.
So if somebody get arrested, they can't come here because there's stuff.
They can't come here because there's stuff in here. Yeah, we take them to North Richmond Hills jail. But we hold on to the bad stuff. If he's got a gun, we hold on to it. Once they go to court and they have their trial, the DA will call us and they'll say, hey, can you bring us that gun? Or can you bring us the drugs that he had? Or whatever they had, whatever evidence they need.
When you guys bring them from here.
We'll bring them. So they will contact Ms. Camaros and she'll say, sure, I'll get the stuff. So she'll take that stuff, she'll transport it up there, they'll use it in their trial, and then when the case is over with, they'll give it back to her. And they'll say, all right, go put it back. And depending on the case and how the trial came out, she may have to hold on to that for a year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, or forever,
Oh, wow.
depending on what it is. So, just like a hoarder house, you bring stuff in, it never leaves. You just hold on to it, it just gets piled up. Now, there are some cases we can get rid of stuff. If we have a kid at the high school that got caught with tobacco, he's got some cigarettes in his backpack. We're going to take the cigarettes away from him, obviously, but he's committed a crime. You can't have tobacco when you're a kid, right?
Or on school property.
Yeah, on property or yeah, school property. We're going to hold on to those because it's evidence of a crime. A small one, but still a crime. He's going to go talk to Judge Irby at the City Hall over there, and she's going to give him whatever she tells him, right? Community service. You're going to do 30 hours community service. That's evidence of that crime still, so we have to hold on to it. Once he has, or she, has fulfilled their 30 hours of community service and their case is done with, then Ms. Camaros can call Judge Irby and say, listen, that case is done. He's done his time. He served his community service. Maybe he was not guilty, whatever. Can I get rid of this box of cigarettes? And they'll say yes, or maybe no. And there's a long, lengthy process where you have to fill out paperwork and talk to a judge before finally they say yes, destroy the evidence. So we have to hold on to it until we get that yes. Now, if you've ever dealt with any kind of government process, like taxes or anything else, nothing's fast. Everything is super, super slow. And she has to keep track of every piece of property in this room. All of them. In that room, you'll see boxes of like files. So we have lots and lots and lots and tons and tons and tons of DVDs. And the DVDs are going to be copies of our body cams and our dash cams that get burned onto a disc. Those are evidence, right? Because people said stuff and did stuff and drove by or whatever, or stuff that I said and did. It's all evidence. We have to keep those files until the court case comes up. So just like we're keeping guns and bats and whatever else, we're also keeping data. And of course, this police has changed since the 90s. We didn't have that before, now we do. Now we have all this data we gotta keep track of. And because we have more and more body cams and more dash cams and more, the videos are better and the audio is better, that requires more data space. So we just have more and more stuff we gotta keep track of. And you see now it's kind of starting to overflow, right?
Yeah.
It's starting to come out in the hallways. This room here, if you look on the floor, you can kind of see the old line we used to make them walk up and down, right? Tape on the floor. And the thing on the back where it says how tall they are and stuff. This room used to be empty and that's all it was used for, is for the DWI. And these be cameras and stuff in here now. Now we have all these racks and racks and racks and racks of DVDs, right? That's all data. That's gonna be dash cams, body cams, we have to keep them all. So we just start having piles and piles and piles and thousands
It's in the refrigerator.
of DVDs. The refrigerators, we had 4 of them. We didn't used to have that many. That is refrigerated evidence. So some crimes require we collect that evidence. This is gonna be like a SANE exam.
Oh,
Yeah, so we keep that stuff in there. Also blood evidence. If somebody is super drunk and we pull them over for being super drunk, we can get a warrant for their blood. We'll collect their blood, it has to be refrigerated. And so we keep it there until their trial date or until the judge says we can dispose of it. But it could be a long, long, long time. When I was a patrol officer, I arrested a guy for DWI. He was driving crazy, hit a pole. He ends up getting his blood taken, right? All right, well, we're gonna go to court and do the business. That took 6 years before it ever saw a court date.
wow.
Right? And then he appealed it after. He was guilty, but he appealed it later. So it's probably still in there. Until all those processes are done, we have to hold on to the evidence. We're the custodians of it. We also have to explain where it's at all times and who's putting their hands on it. So if I came in here to say, hey, can I check that out? I've got to tell Gamaros and she's going to write down that Simmons came in here and he picked up that blood evidence, he shook it and put it back or whatever. Because somebody's going to want to know about that, especially a defense attorney, right?
Oh, yeah.
This room used to be where we prepared the sandwiches and orange juices and stuff for our inmates that were housed here, right? 'Cause we got to feed them. Once somebody gets arrested and we put them in jail, we're responsible for their health, right? So we would do their meals and stuff in here. Since we don't have the inmates anymore, now we converted it into a makeshift lab. So Ms. Camaros will come in here. She's one of our crime scene techs as well. And so she'll do the fuming, like you've heard on TV where they fume, they put stuff in like aquarium, they fume for fingerprints and stuff. We do that. We fingerprint for evidence. That's why you see the paper down everywhere. It's a super messy process. It's fun. I like doing it, but it is messy. A lot of our officers are trained in some level of crime scene, so they can do fingerprinting, they can do photography and that kind of stuff. But Ms. Camaros is our prime person here. There's 4 total that we have,
Correct.
in case she's busy or it's a big, big, big scene. But you see, she does as much as we can. We always try to process as much evidence as we can in-house, especially fingerprints and such, because if we send something off, hey, there's a Coke can, the burglar touched it, and Ms. Camaros puts it in a bag and sends it off to a different lab, an independent lab, when they do it, they're going to charge her. You want to talk about that?
So anytime I send off any item that needs to be fingerprinted per print, they are going to charge me $125. That's just to dust and lift the print. Now, in order to analyze and compare, they are going to charge me $250 per hour until they can either say, yes, we have a match, or no, we do not have a match.
Wow, that's expensive.
So that's for fingerprinting. And to put it in perspective, most of our officers can fingerprint. They know how to put the dust down and stuff. I actually teach the fingerprinting merit badge for the Boy Scouts. So I will teach kids from kindergarten age to Cub Scout level to 18, and they can all do a pretty decent job of fingerprinting. So we're charging $150 per fingerprint for something that, I can train you to do in like an hour, right? Now, obviously for crime scene, we want to be very, very careful how we do it, but it's not a super hard process. So anything we can do here, we're going to do here because we want to save y'all money. If we send something off to be processed and it doesn't cost her nothing, right? It costs you guys something, right? So you're paying it for your property taxes and sales taxes and stuff, right? Your taxes have to pay for that. So anything we can do to keep the cost down for you guys, we're going to do that. So you'll see a lot of people, we're trying to save money and save space and save room and save costs for you guys. DNA is a big thing. Well, send it off to DA, get it all tested. Well, I'll send it to the lab and those kind of things. DNA testing is extremely expensive. It's a very, very expensive process because it uses a lot of big machines and scientists and stuff. So we had a case many years back, and the comforter was our piece of evidence that we went to get, kind of like a SANE exam. We're collecting that same type of evidence from a comforter. The comforter had several spots on it that were evidence. So we sent it off, and obviously we have to have them all tested. We can't just say that spot, we want them all tested. How much is a DNA spot?
So dependent on what it is, what kind of matter it is, so on and so forth, I can tell you this, one of our cases was up to $40,000
Oh my
for the DNA testing.
Wow.
So that's one case, and we have, and that's one serious case.
That's one serious case.
We have 50,000 calls for service a year, and of those 50,000 calls for service, a bunch of them are gonna be very, very serious cases.
What if
So,
the person doesn't have the money to pay for that?
what's that?
What if the person doesn't have the money to pay for that? Or how does that work?
We pay for it.
You pay for it, okay.
Yes, yeah, Haltom City pays for it. Because the other side of that is saying, oh, sorry, that's an expensive process,
We can't do it.
we can't do it, sorry. You know, we're not gonna tell our victims that, we're gonna say, we're gonna take care of this, we're gonna get that bad guy whatever it costs.
Okay.
Um,
Wow.
We had the triple murder on Ola in 2010. So we had 3 people that were killed in that, ton of evidence. We had bullets going everywhere, we had laser pointers out there and all kinds of stuff. And that was a very expensive investigation. But in that investigation, we caught the person responsible for 3 murders. And he was a gang member on top of that. So he was a very, very, very bad person that we ended up cutting. He has a life in prison with no parole. So we did catch him. It was expensive, but I think we all agree that he needed to be caught. So over here, this is holding cell 302 is very special. Holding cell 302 is where all of our homicide evidence is at. So this is stuff we have to keep forever. We can never get rid of it. It's going to be in here forever. So if you look inside the window, you'll see dates from the 50s, 60s, 70s, right? Because we're just always going to keep it. You may see bicycles in there from when we had the bicycles that got hit and they were charged with intoxication assault or intoxication manslaughter for those cases, and then just straight up murder cases. So we can never get rid of that evidence. Even though somebody gets charged with the murder, and maybe they're in prison right now, like the triple murder I talked about, evidence from that case is in here somewhere. Maybe he appeals at some point, right? So we have to have that evidence. Maybe at some point Smith says, hey, that Simmons was on that case. He was a detective on that case, and I heard he's not a very good guy. He's not very honest. Maybe he lied, and that's why my client's in jail. They can pull that evidence right back out, and they can go through it and say, oh no, my client did it. So it's important that we keep it. If there's a problem with that and integrity of anything in this room, that could mean somebody getting out of jail that doesn't need to be in jail, or somebody being in jail that doesn't need to be there. We don't want that either, right? You see we kind of overflowing, we have bicycles here. This might be evidence of crime, or it could be somebody who went to jail and this was their transportation, and we gotta hold on to it until they get out, right? It could be that as well. It's probably what most of these are, right?
Yes, that's what all of those are.
This was somebody's transportation. If we take custody of someone, we have to take care of their stuff that they had on them too. Any purses, wallets, keys, cigarettes, lighters, bicycles, backpacks.
Backpacks, clothing.
We gotta take care of all of it until they get out and they get their stuff back, all right? This room right here has the fancy blue lights in it. These machines, what they're doing is they're burning discs that you see on our table. These machines go 24 hours a day, 7 days a week because there's so much data to store. So they just constantly just keep burning those discs. When we first started doing body cams and dash cams and stuff, we had one machine that we kept busy until we broke it because it just never stopped. So now we actually have multiple machines that just keep cranking out these discs that we have to keep for a long, long, long time. So we have a lot of data we go through. I want to point this over here, this room that the door's open. This is actually a shower, and it's important. I'll tell you why. The reason we have this, we have it open right now, is because we have about 20 female employees now. And when they're on the street, like right now we have 4. We have Santoyo out there, we have Morales is out there, you're here, Aaron's here. 4. Yeah. If they're out in their business, right, and they wrestle with a homeless person covered in stuff, right, they would want to change out of those clothes and probably take a shower and go back on the streets. We don't have the facilities anymore for 20 women, right? So we have to make them shower where inmates choose to shower. That's super sad.
What is that?
Yeah, but that's what we have. And I'll tell you the same thing I've told every other tour group is you will not hear a female employee complain because we're doing the best that we can.
Yeah.
Again, it's just one of those things where the facility in the 90s was different. We had different needs then. We didn't have the data needs that we had now. We don't have the storage needs that we have now. It's just police work has changed and we have to fit those needs. This is the environment that Mrs. Gamaros has to work in because there's no place else to do it, right? One of the big hazards of that, of working in this area, is, we told you that this cell over here, 320, 312. 311, wow, I always want to do 320. is where the drugs are. So there's gonna be marijuana in there, heroin, cocaine. There's gonna be methamphetamines in there. There's also fentanyl in there. You probably have heard of that.
It's all the above.
Yes. Fentanyl is transdermal, which means if you get it on your skin, it goes through and right, and it can kill you. Right? So just touching that stuff can actually kill you. There's also little stickers that people put on there, the fentanyl patches. Right? If you don't know what that is and you're touching it, it's going to go through your skin and it's going to get you.
We've
Right?
had some officers come in because
From
they-
fentanyl exposure, right? It is super, super dangerous, right? So even touching one of those is really, really bad. The last case you have of fentanyl?
The last case we had, we confiscated 1,000 pills.
Wow.
So she's handling that evidence back here. Of course, she's careful. She wants to put her gloves and stuff on like that, right? But she's in a room that has no ventilation, handling these really, really deadly substances she has to handle, right? It's just because, again, we're using an area that was not never intended for that purpose. So this room now is where we store all of our ammunition. So we're issued bullets for going and doing our job. So we'll have a magazine for ARs. Most officers carry an AR because that's what the bad guys carry. So we carry an AR that has 30 rounds in it, that's 30 bullets. I have a 9mm that I carry. This holds 52 bullets. So that's why I'm carrying on my person at all times. Most officers here carry 9mm, and that's 52 bullets. Some officers carry 45s, which is like, I think 40 what they carry, 40 bullets. Ends up being a lot of bullets. One of the great things about Haltom City is we do a lot of training. We train a bunch, which keeps us in the tip-top shape that we can be. So a lot of the agencies around us are very jealous because you guys are always training because it keeps you top of your game, right? So we train at the range. So we go to the firing range a lot, and that teaches us how to use our firearms more appropriately, right, and effectively. So we can use them, if we have to use them, we can, and it also teaches a lot of times when we could use something else instead of guns. But that uses a lot of bullets. If you have 78 employees and we're all going to shoot a bunch of bullets, we got to buy a bunch of bullets. If anybody has guns, you know that's very expensive to do right now. So that room is where we store all of our ammunition. It used to be elsewhere in the building, but we ran out of room. So we had to start using that room for something else. Yes. You can go back underground. So all these cubicles belong to detectives. There's 10 that use this office. So again, we've grabbed some people in a small area, right? And if you call for Detective Trevino, he'll go.
Oh.
Yeah?
I
See?
get it.
Look at over. I'm just kidding. He'd be like, what? He wouldn't say. So we put them in cubicles. We have each one of these detectives works a different kind of crime. So Detective Junker would be here, and he would do identity thefts. He'd do a lot of financial crimes. So he would do that. Langford is here. He does auto thefts. Anything involving a car that has wheels on it, he's going to do. Binnicker's here. He would do crimes against children. We have property crimes. But you see, we kind of ran out of places to put people. So this is interview room 1. This would have been an interview room 2 as well, not interview room 2, but as well. But because we ran out of places to put detectives, we had to put one in here. So because we put one in here, we had to give up one of our interview rooms. So now we're down to one interview room. That room is boring on purpose. There's no clock in there. There's no posters on the wall because we want them focused on the conversation that we're having. There is a microphone in there and a camera. So everything that we say or do is recorded. That's what this room is for. This room records all that information coming, all that data coming in. We're very fortunate that we have a really good system in there. So when we're interviewing someone, if they whisper something, we can hear it. If they get on the phone and they talk to somebody, we can usually hear the person talking, right?
Oh, wow.
Because it's just so good. So we do really like our interview system that we have. But we have one room. When I was a detective back here, I was back here for about 10 years. Several of my cases were capital murder cases or multiple capital murder cases.
Here?
Yes. And so those conversations take longer than somebody keying a car. Those conversations might take hours. So if I'm in here and I'm talking to someone who's at a capital murder case, and I want to take my time and get all the evidence out there because the one shot that I have, as I'm having those conversations, nobody else can use that room. Now, while I'm doing that, something else may have happened in the city, and they need to use the room as well. We may have had a crime involving a child, or maybe we have another deceased person somewhere. That conversation needs to take place. They just have to wait. So if I'm in there doing what's probably very important, they have to make a decision with another family about what do we do. They can't just sit down and have a conversation with them here because it's not recorded. If the person says, yeah, I did it, what are you going to do about it? Oh, man, hang on. Say that again, please. Oh, right? So it's super important that we have those recorded, right? So we're down to one room now, and we just have to just prioritize the best as we can. And unfortunately, that meant sometimes you're telling a family who just had something bad happen to them, hey, can you wait 2 or 3 hours? Because we're busy, is what it kind of comes out to. But we want to make sure we treat their case just as importantly as the next one. So a lot of times we're waiting in line to use the room because it's the only one we got. We have tried going to different agencies before. Hey, can y'all all meet us at Watauga? Can you meet us all in North Richland Hills? Sure. We'll take them over there to use their room. The problem we had with that was we'd finish. We're like, all right, well, we'll talk to you later. We'd let them leave. And we're like, all right, I need the data from that room. And they're like, I don't know how to get that off. You know, or, oh, I can't find it. Or I burned a disk, didn't it get to you? So that data could get lost because you're handling it multiple times instead of I push the button and I got the disk in my hand when I leave.
Right.
So after we got burned on some cases because it just changed hands so many times, we stopped doing it. So this is our war table, right? So detectives brought this in here, so when they have a bigger case, they can all kind of sit around and talk about it. You probably recognize, remember the Uber Eats driver that was murdered beginning of this year? That was a big case. All the detectives were working on it at the same time, so they put all the cases they're individually working on down for a minute to work on this one. They also worked with Fort Worth because it turned out the suspects were in their city. So they had Fort Worth we were working with. We were obviously working with Uber Eats. They were trying to help us as best they could. The marshals were trying to help us as well. And then, of course, we're trying to contact like the FBI. A tip came in from another part of the country. So we had to use that information as well. The FBI was good about helping coordinate some of that stuff. So there's a lot of people. And then, of course, once we realized where our suspects were, we had to get them somehow. So the SWAT team was also involved in that because we got to apprehend our suspects. All those people were here around this table trying to figure it out because this is what we got. Detectives still have a lot of gear they got to wear because we do go out and get the bad guys too and show lamps and stuff like that. So you'll see that they have their gear kind of squirreled away in their cubicles. Their helmets, ballistic helmets, their rifle plates, their vests and stuff. We have to gotta keep it somewhere. So this is where it all ends up. You just stick it away in your cubicle and hope for the best. So we go in here and it says Police Administration. So this, yes. So this is where Mrs. Strada sits. She's the chief's right hand lady. If you call the chief, you're gonna talk to her first. She's going to prioritize all his stuff. She's a lot of work. She does a bunch of work. This is where our public safety manager is. So he does like special projects like Spellman, which is our CAD system. He's kind of a buffer between the city's IT department and our own. So if something's not working in our cars, because our car computers have to work wirelessly, he can call IT and say, this is what we got going on, and they can coordinate those projects. He also helps with all the body cam stuff that's going on, and the tasers actually have data on them as well. This is another captain. He's in charge of a bunch of stuff. This is the chief's office. All right, so come on in here for a second. This is our conference room. So this room is very different. One thing you don't see in here is storage. We don't store anything in here. Everything else, every place else you've been, I've said we store this here, we got to store that here. We put this under a desk, we don't put anything in here. This is where we have a briefing twice a day. At 6 a.m. and 6 p.m., all the officers that are coming on shift and going off shift will meet in here. And so they'll say, hey, listen, I'm just now coming on. What happened in my district today? Oh, you know what? We had the apartment complex, 5600 North Beach, had some catalytic converters cut off on the west side of the building. Okay, I'll keep an eye on that. So they'll exchange information about what happened during your shift. Watch out for this house. We heard there's drugs being sold out of that house. Or so-and-so just got out of prison and he's really mad about it, so keep an eye on that house. That information will change hands here between the oncoming shift and the outgoing shift. So if you have a sergeant, a corporal, and then we have all these extra chairs that we don't get to use, unfortunately. So you have 5, 6, or 7 officers here, right? And you have the shift that's just leaving, which is an officer, a corporal, and 5, 6, or 7 officers. We're standing up talking these things. So as big as the room looks, it gets really small really fast. This room also ended up turning into our Emergency Operations Center, EOC. So when we had big snowmageddon and everybody lost power and water and everything else was going on, Station 1 also was losing those services too. Station 1 is where we have our EOC, which is on the 2nd floor. All right, so they had to come here to help deal with the emergencies. They're talking about who gets power next and how to get the water turned back on, and all those decisions get made. Because this is a critical infrastructure, the PD didn't lose power, luckily, but everybody else did. Some of the people who were really, really close to the PD didn't lose power because they're hooked on the armed little spot. The EOC is supposed to have certain standards, and the chief can tell you more about them, They withstand 120-mile-an-hour winds, and if you're able to fit all the employees into it and things like that, this obviously doesn't meet those standards. A lot of work on this building, when they first were converting it from a grocery store into a police station, the concrete work, the drywall work was done by police and firefighters. So they wanted to keep costs low, so they would finish their shift and they would just change clothes into pants and t-shirts, and they would just work concrete. Or they would work drywall, or they would paint. So they could keep costs low to the citizens. But it still ended up costing $2 million back in the 90s just to convert to what you see now. So they are very, very dedicated to keeping costs down as low as they can, even to their own, even if it means their own manpower. So that's what this room is for.
Quick question.
Library? Yeah.
Is this just for like stress relief after a bad meeting? Or?
This is a clearing barrel. So officers, and this is super, super heavy, right? So when officers are coming on shift, before you leave the room or go out in the shift, you want to make sure that you have got a bullets in your gun, right? You don't want to walk out of here with no bullets in your gun. And it's not safe to be sitting here next to somebody and be like, "Is there bullets in my gun today?" Because accidents happen. So they can take their guns and they can point it into here and check and make sure their guns are loaded before they leave. If, God forbid, if there's an accident and they have their finger on the trigger and they fire the gun, it's going to fire into this barrel and it's not going to harm anybody. It's going to be super loud.
Oh my God.
But it's not going to hurt anybody. And we never use it, thank God. At least not for that. We can use it to check our guns, but luckily we've never had to use the other end of it. These lockers, right? We have 32 lockers. These are evidence lockers. So evidence lockers are if we catch a bad guy, well, these officers actually catch a bad guy, and he has drugs in his pocket. We already saw how Erin, Miss Camaros stores that stuff in the property, right? If she's not here, like right now, she went home, I think, we have to do something with that until she gets it. We have to maintain the chain of custody. So we'll lock it in a locker until she gets here. So an officer will come in here, they'll throw it in there, they'll take a padlock out of here, out of here, and they'll lock the door. So anything with a lock on it has evidence in it. So you can see that we're not very far into the night shift, and we've already used 10 of them.
No, but it looks like Jesse.
So that one is actually for discs, for like body cams in cars. So evidence your disc, I'll throw a disc in there. So we see we only have 32. We have different sizes. We are 3 hours into a 12-hour shift, and they've already used 10.
Wow.
In 90s, this wasn't a really big deal. We're like 32, that's a lot of crime. But we had a lot fewer citizens and a lot less things going on. Now we have a bunch. So using all these up is not hard to do at all. So this needs to be expanded a lot, so I can keep up with the needs we have. The last thing we want to do is to start mixing evidence and say, hey, put your guy's drugs with my guy's gun, right? Because we're out of lockers. Okay, because the Miss Camaros will get it and think they're the same case, and then now she's putting them on a different shelf. So what happens is the DA is like, hey, can you bring me that gun? And you're like, what about these drugs? You want those too? And we're like, what are we talking about? So that brings the defense attorney to say something like, how often do you mishandle evidence? You know, and that causes problems to make it go free because of a mistake like that. So it's very, very important that we handle the evidence like we need to. So this is the traffic office, the guys on motorcycles, right? This is their office. Yeah. These guys are gonna write you a ticket to pull you over, so you can just go ahead and just get ready for it. Yeah, this is Officer Whitmire's desk, right? This is Sergeant Peter's desk. This is Officer Taylor's desk. However, there are 4 guys in traffic.
Oh, only 3 in here.
Only 3 desks because we can't fit another desk in here. So they have to just argue over the desk. Again, there's just no room. We don't have any room. They put shelves up and they've gone up as much as they could. They put the racks in, they've gone that way. But this actually is just a fraction of all the equipment they use. So besides going out and writing people tickets, here's the ticket writers they use, right? Besides doing that, they also do that car seat program, right? So they do that. That's a trailer that's involved in that thing and all the stuff that goes along with that too. They also do, if there's a major accident in Haltom City where somebody is seriously hurt or killed, they will go on and map that crime scene. And that takes special equipment. That's some of the stuff you see over here. Over here you see the water purifier machines. We have actually drinkable water. Turns out that we had water fountains we would fill water bottles up with, but it turns out that we had lead.
Oh
The water for
no.
the past 25 years we've been drinking out of. So they ended up capping those lines off, but they did get us a water machine. So now we can drink water without lead in it.
Oh my goodness.
So, for our water unleaded. Yes.
Oh my gosh.
All right. This is Sergeant Ernie, Sergeant Foreman, and Officer Santoyo. They're your night shift for tonight. So this is the sergeant's office. We have, how many sergeants do we have, Ernie?
We have 8 sergeants.
8 sergeants, okay? And you see we have 1, 2, 3, 4 desks in there. So they have to prioritize who's gonna do what, who's gonna be out there and doing reports and stuff like that.
Too much of a little baby to be a cop.
Yeah, oh no, they train you. They fix that, right?
Yes, you get training, man.
Yeah.
That's a Scooby-Dooby-Doo shirt. I like it. How old are you?
9.
9? How tall are you?
Pretty tall.
Let's see.
Oh, he measures with
You're
me all the
doing well, my
time.
man. You're doing well.
Well, she's 11, so you're almost as tall.
Kind of like us.
So some of the lockers we keep in there, we have stuff like our less lethal shotguns in there that shoots a beanbag round instead of an actual shotgun bullet. Because sometimes we just want to stop people,
I
right?
got pepper balls.
We have pepper balls too. We can shoot from like a paintball gun. We have tasers, right? We have a lot of less lethal because we just want people to stop what they're doing, right? We don't want to injure people. We want to try to take them into custody as safely as possible. You'll see it says juvenile office now, all right? So if we take a juvenile before we process them, before we take them to Kimbo, which is where the juvenile processing center is, and this chair now is the juvenile office.
Oh.
This is where juveniles sit handcuffs while we do the report. So we had to move it so they could be. We talked about you had to have some eyes on the whole time because that's changed down there. This is what you use this for now. So we have to sit them there, and an officer will do a report right there in that first computer to finish the report. This says property evidence. It's not anymore. We moved it to the jail. Remember? Okay. So remember how big the jail was?
Yes.
Okay. This was our property evidence technicians. So this would have been Erin's office back in the day, right? So this would have been her little office. Over here is where we keep all of our equipment. So if you come in here, it takes a lot of equipment to put on a police officer, all right? And this is the closet we get to stick it in.
Oh my goodness.
So we have 78 officers. This doesn't include the SWAT guys. This doesn't include the civilians and all their stuff. This is just actual uniform officers. And so you see we've gone to the ceiling to try to find places. They need these folders. This is general orders. That's the rules, the Haltom City's rules about how to be a police officer. And you see how we're kind of stacked on the floor now. Police work keeps changing. We have to carry more and more gear, and we have less and less place to put it.
Oh, I got it. Good shot. Thank you.
It does feel tactical here, doesn't it?
Very.
This is a cool room over here. Go ahead and head in that room right there.
There's where he's going.
Yep. Yeah. So this is a training room. Okay. That's Bob. Yeah. This is a training room. You walk in here and you're like, this is a big room. This used to be property evidence. So all the stuff that was in the jail used to be in this room, and it used to be to the ceiling. Right? That's where it used to be. When we got rid of the jail, we put our property there, and it's much more secure. Right? So if you look at this room, it's not very big for one. Just a couple of those jail cells would fill this up already, right?
Yeah.
It was stacked on racks that you had to go down sideways down to get room. That's how much room we needed, right? And if you look at the ceiling, this is called a drop ceiling, right? If I jumped up and poked that tile, it would fall over, right? So you could go from room to room to room with this kind of ceiling. That's not very secure.
No.
If we want to keep somebody out of here, you just go over the wall, right? All right? This over here, we had a pretty major roof leak for a while we didn't know about. That was leaking from the roof and going down the wall. And we were in here to do some training, and when the officer was explaining what was going to happen next, the thing gets like this, and he ended up outside.
Oh no.
So that's what that was. All right? Again, it's a 50-year-old building, and you have 50-year-old problems. So if you're able to just fall through the wall, you can imagine that our property in here was not very secure, and that was a very, very big problem. This room was on our Facebook page to put on there. So that all that stuff there is officers' mailboxes. If we get some paperwork or subpoenas or whatever, it goes in our mailboxes there. Of course, another printer because we make a lot of reports. Over here, you see the top shelf. That's batteries for our radios. So our police radios we carry all night long, right? They have batteries in the back of them, obviously. Okay. Really, really good radios that Motorola makes. However, the batteries don't last a 12-hour shift. They last 7 hours of a 12-hour shift. So at some point, you have to replace the battery. We don't have enough room to have 80 chargers for our batteries. So you have to take them home and charge your batteries at night and keep an extra one in your bag. If you have a really, really long shift, we're using the radio a lot, and they both go down, you have to come in here and see if you can find a spare battery. So we just don't have the room for 80 chargers for the batteries because we also carry flashlights. Your flashlight will not even come close to lasting a 12-hour shift. You have to stop and recharge it at some point. But we have to charge those at home. because we have space for 80 flashlight chargers in addition to the battery chargers.
And then you're screwed when you forget to
Yes, you're in big, big trouble. So that takes up a lot of room. Somebody asked about, why don't I just put a surge protector on there, right? So we need more room.
Power strip.
Oh
you
my.
have the power
We've already
strip.
done that.
Yeah, let me get that real good.
gosh.
We've already
Yeah.
tried that. So data cables and power cords and surge protectors and whatever, we do the best we can.
Some more guts.
Yeah, we're good.
All right, this is our mini lab. This used to be a closet, we turned it to a mini lab, so officers will do some of their fingerprinting here. They can dry evidence up there. You see our dryer?
Mm-hmm.
Does that look familiar?
Looks like
Oh
one
look,
from the
it's
home.
it's a vent hood.
It's a vent hood,
Yes, for the
right?
stove.
But again, it works.
Yeah.
So we put it up there. This is also
Improvise.
where we'll weigh up drugs. We have to say what the weight of it is, and we can test drugs in this room as well. Again, anything we can do in the building to keep from sending it to the lab to do first saves money.
Yes.
All right, this is our technical room. This is where the SWAT guys will get dressed. As we wrap the cord. Yes. This is what we- Yes. Okay. Right there. Thank you. Heads up. Is this behind me? Okay. This is what they're wearing on duty right now. Right? This has got their tasers in it, some extra bullets, some gloves, whatever. This is their normal stuff. My vest is under my shirt, but it's the same thing, right? When they go into SWAT mode, they have to put their SWAT gear on. Their SWAT gear, besides just being in green, they're gonna have helmets on. They're gonna have different vests. These vests stop most handgun rounds, but stop zero rifle rounds. So if somebody's shooting rifles at us, it's just gonna go straight through the vest and keep on going. We want to put on ballistic vests for that. So they're gonna come in here. They're gonna
Much heavier.
change. What's that?
Much heavier.
Much heavier. These are pretty heavy, but the ballistic ones are way heavier. Helmets, giant stuff, puffy stuff, right? Big old boots, gloves, comm systems. They're gonna put all this stuff in. There's supposed to be 22 people on the team. I think we have like 15 right now. So 15 men will be in here putting all this junk on. All these lockers that you see, they built. They needed some lockers because they didn't have any. So they got together and they built these. Yes. They were very proud of it, so they signed it. All right. Okay. Nobody ever gets to come in this room.
Oh yay.
This is the big boy toy room.
Oh,
Okay, so we do have firearms and stuff in here, so I'm gonna keep a very close eye on you. This is where some of their gear hangs, as you can see, right? This is where the sniper rifles will be. This is where the different handguns will be. We have different shotguns and stuff. We do have a 40 millimeter launcher there. That's for shooting like projectiles. Okay, and of course we have our super safe, and this is where the M4s are going to be kept. Right, this is the fully automatic short barreled. You have to be a law enforcement or military to have
I was
this.
gonna say, Grandpa probably held one of those.
Yes. Let's see. I thought there was a ballistic vest in there. Each officer, this is Steele. Jason Steele is a firefighter, right? But he's also a cop.
How heavy is it?
It's pretty heavy. You want to wear it? So that's about 40 pounds, 45 pounds. Yes.
No, because James used to have the best.
Goodness.
So this
They
would
were
be in
heavy.
addition to his other gear,
Heavy.
right? And then his helmet, everything else.
Very heavy.
So when our SWAT team goes out, a medic goes with them.
Right.
So he is actually a paramedic. So if anything bad happens, he can respond to it. This is the women's locker room. Dum dum dum. We're gonna go in there because she said it's clear, right? When we built the building, right, we had two or three women. So that's all we needed right here now. Now we have 20, right? Our needs have changed, but our building stays the same because there's just no room. So go ahead and come on in here. You've seen potties before, I'm sure.
Yes.
All right.
Oh, it's very small.
Yes. Oh my goodness.
Well, this is like a restaurant bathroom.
Yes. So you saw the room we had for the SWAT guys to change because they have a whole lot of gear that's on, right? And there's 15 guys in that little big room. So over here is the women's locker room.
Oh my goodness. You're small.
So this is
Okay.
where 20 women will get changed.
No, this is not right.
So they've done the best they can. They put shelves in. We utilize the top of our lockers and that kind of stuff. But it is what it is. We only have so much space. I mean, the building's only big. Behind me is the shower. Right, we talked about the shower and the gel that women will use, right? We do have one right here. Because we're sitting on top of 50-year-old plumbing, oftentimes this will back up with sewage and it will flood this area, so they can't get dressed or anything in here.
Thanks.
the building maintenance has done really, really good about trying to adjust the problems. They try to snake it and stuff, but since the plumbing is old going out, it just pokes through the old stuff, and which causes bigger problems. And now you've got a $1,000 job that turned into a $50,000 job.
Oh my goodness.
So, so that's why some of the tiles are pulled loose and stuff like that. It's because it floods. That's just one of those things. The potties for the men's bathroom, of course, are connected to here. So when they have a problem there, it shows up here first.
Oh no.
So, and of course the girls have put racks and stuff for their gear. In addition to this regular stuff that we wear, they also have rifle plates. If we know we're going to something where we can shot at rifles, they can wear these. These are heavy.
And then that's
Yes. So not quite as heavy as the SWAT guys. But if we're going to something where they're shooting rifles at us, we want to at least have a little more section of this.
It's still heavy.
oh wow. Yeah. But
So our ladies are very, very fierce.
Yes, we are. Yes,
They can handle themselves, right?
They're some tough ladies.
Yes, we got Ghost.
Thank you.
Right? This is where his stuff lives. So we have Ghost and Harkos. Those are two canines.
I know what
They're-
that is. You put that on and
They bite it. So because they're dogs, right? They're very, very highly trained dogs, and the handlers are very, very highly trained. But you have to keep the training up. You have to constantly keep training, which requires equipment.
Goat's got his own toys in
He
here.
has his own toys, right? Those are his rewards, right? So we keep their stuff in here. It's the only place we really had to put it anymore. We put it in there, and the handlers will keep the rest of the stuff at home because there's just not space to store it. Unfortunately, when you need it and it's at home, it doesn't do you a whole lot of good here, right? The dogs do have their own ballistic vests.
Ooh, the little dog has
How
their own
heavy is
vest.
These aren't very heavy at all. So the dogs will wear these, all
Okay.
right? And they're smelly because they were on dogs, right? And we actually had citizens that pulled together to buy vests for our dogs, so our dogs
that's
would have
neat.
vests. Because unfortunately, criminals will shoot
Oh,
dogs.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
One of the biggest killers of officers is not bullets, it's actually heart disease, right? Because we sitting in a car for 12 hours a day, 60 hours a week, we're driving around. If you're working right now, anything past midnight, you're gonna eat Taco Bell or Whataburger. If you don't bring something from home, or McDonald's, yeah. So it's not a very healthy lifestyle, especially when you go from just like being chill to super stressed, to chill to super, it's bad for your heart,
Yes.
right? So exercise helps keep that up. Same thing with firefighters. The last chief got us this exercise equipment so we could stay healthy. The firefighters from Station 1 and 2 will also come up here and use this a lot because they're had a really small section too. So it does get used all the time. This is bigger, right?
Yes.
Oh wow, a lot bigger.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
We're gonna come right here.
Much bigger.
There we go. In the 90s, we had way more men than we had women, right? So, you saw what we just came from, right? We have 2 showers over there that building maintenance did get fixed, so we actually use those a bunch. You see a lot of equipment in here because police work changed so much. We have so much gear we have to carry now. So this is all this gear. Patrol bags and forms, and we have the rifle plates that go on top of this. We have crime scene stuff that goes in our Tahoes. We get asked a lot, why Tahoes? Why do you have a Tahoe? Why not have something smaller and cheaper? Why not get a Ford Fiesta or something else? Or a meter maid's car, I don't know. The reason is because all the gear we carry now. We didn't used to carry all that stuff. We didn't have active shooters in schools, and we didn't have all that stuff we do now.
Yeah.
So if we had a Charger, I'm a big Dodge fan, I'd love to have Chargers. I think those are fast and fun to drive. But all that gear would go in the trunk, which means when it's time to dig out gear, I gotta go to the trunk and dig for it and get it. Because I'm gonna carry my patrol bag, I'm gonna carry my AR, we're gonna carry a shotgun, we're gonna carry a less lethal gun, I might have a pepper ball gun, maybe we have the 40mm back there, a shield, right? A rifle plate, a first aid kit, fire extinguisher, flares, leg restraints, extra handcuffs, zip tie, it goes on and on and on and on. The Tahoes have spaces for all that stuff to go to. So if something bad happens, I can go straight to my first aid kit to help in a car accident. Or I can go straight to my leg restraint for somebody who's kicking at us, or spitting us, whatever. We go straight to that gear. I wish they weren't big giant tanks, but you know, that's the needs that we have.
Yes.
This is a much bigger room, right?
Yes.
Much bigger.
We have 78 officers. We need a bunch more. 66 is as high as the lockers go to. So that means somebody doesn't get lockers. Miss Camaros has been helping us out through the tour. She's our property room tech. You've seen her poking in and out. She does not have a locker in the ladies' locker room because there's no space for her or our other civilians. Because the officers take up so much room, they had to ask them to move out. So Miss Camaros will get changed and stuff in that property room you saw. She'll go lock the door so the public can't come in, and then she'll get changed around the corner. That's just all we have. That's all we can do. So that wasn't a problem in the 90s. Now it's a problem. We want to treat them well, but there's not much we can do. So this is our patrol door. That's where we keep all of our cop cars parked out there. And so when it's time to go to work, they'll go out that door and hop in the patrol cars, which is what they did, and then off they go.
Well, that's this then.
Bad thing is, there's no fence there, right? So we've had our cars broken into. We had a laptop stolen out of one of the cars. The cars get vandalized because people aren't really happy with the police sometimes. And you can go on YouTube and you can look up where people come on the property and they're like filming our cars.
I'll have to look that up for you.
But yeah, that's the problem we have out there, is that they come in and mess with the cars because there's nothing that stops them from doing it. They just come up there and they jack with them. Or I've got somebody YouTube herself doing it, and she came to the back of my car and she was tearing the decals off of it.
Oh.
And she was like, I hate the police and blah blah blah, and bad words, bad words, bad words. And she YouTubed herself doing it, and then went over to Fort Worth and did the same thing, and they got her over there. But they tried to break in. They flattened tires. They stole laptops out of them, which was done because we can track them. We tracked it right to their apartment. But it does happen because it's not secure.